Even without knowing his name, you've seen his face 100 times. It was Richard Jaeckel everywhere. War movies, westerns, cop dramas, and lifeguard-packed beach shows. Hollywood called him when it needed rugged, loyal, and real. Not a matinee idol or heartthrob, but something more real. He powered American masculine films and TV series for nearly 50 years. Then something happened. He faded gradually, in something much worse than scandal or humiliation. Silence. Jaeckel's narrative is understated greatness. He did not arrive on the red carpet with sunglasses and ego. He crouched in a foxhole with a weapon, making every scene seem real. From Guadalcanal Diary to The Dirty Dozen and sometimes A Great Notion, he gave everything to each character. Despite his efforts, accomplishments, and Academy Award nomination, Jaeckel never gained stardom. Perhaps more cruelly, Hollywood never intended to place him there. He toiled tirelessly for decades, appeared in 150-plus movies and shows. He lived for his craft, not celebrity. He skipped the game. He avoided headlines. He was eventually forgotten by Hollywood, who moved on without him. When he died, there were no parades or primetime tributes, just a whisper to a man who helped construct traditional American cinema. Richard Jaeckel's latter years were shocking and devastating. Instead of failure, this is a narrative of quiet dedication and harsh neglect. That was just the start. What came next would unsettle even the most loyal supporters. Richard Jaeckel was not raised with movie stars or celebrity fantasies. He was born in Long Beach, New York, in 1926 and came to Los Angeles young. In the shadow of the Hollywood sign, fate changed. He was not seeking film stardom. Something changed when he was working as a mail boy for 20th Century Fox. He was cast in Guadalcanal Diary at 17 without acting experience or contacts, an important 1943 war picture. The job sparked his 50-year career, and he stood out from the start. No one could mimic Jaeckel's grit. His parts were subtle but memorable. The guy who looked like he had been in the battle could make even the slightest part memorable. He gave the screen great intensity. Casting directors and critics noticed it. The actor Jaeckel improved everyone around him. The man was quiet. He was low-key. He was splendid. Despite his stern on-screen persona, he was caring and loyal. His co-workers called him quiet, humble, and professional. He never sought to take the attention or act better than others on stage. He was punctual, accurate, and respectful to directors and production staff. His modesty may have hurt him in a town that celebrates braggarts. Jaeckel was content to work while his classmates sought magazine covers and rich contracts. He liked acting as a craft, not a career strategy. It showed. Whatever his profession, whether a tough soldier or a small-town cop, there was always more to it. Despite a great body of work and peer esteem, the spotlight always seemed out of reach. Hollywood seems unable to handle a tough yet tender man. Jaeckel proved he was more than a supporting performer over time. He was a fighter on and off screen. Soon, he will fight his toughest fights. Richard Jaeckel was famous by the 1960s. He was a recognized character actor who added substance to every performance, not a box office draw. Producers trusted him as an actor, no matter how difficult. The Dirty Dozen, a harsh and iconic World War II action film with Hollywood's finest stars, was his breakthrough in 1967. In a star-studded cast, Jaeckel stood out. Though not flashy, he was the most believable, and that honesty was noted. Not only explosions and machine guns demonstrated Jaeckel's power. His 1971 portrayal as a harsh, emotionally vulnerable logger in Sometimes a Great Idea was intense and genuine. He received a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination. It was his greatest critical accolades and should have started a new phase. Despite an Oscar mention, the phone didn't ring. No flashy gigs or seven-figure contracts awaited. Instead, he worked again, taking on his usual challenging, understated roles. It brutally showed how Hollywood treated actors like Jaeckel, respected for their guts but rarely celebrated. For his talent and hard work, the system never knew how to reward him. As younger, flashier faces appeared on film, his calm strength was missed. That hurt behind the scenes. No complaints from Jaeckel. He was a true worker. However, his friends reported displeasure. He saw less talented but more charming people get to the top. He observed the industry transition from character-driven storytelling to effects-driven blockbusters. Despite his minor role and far from center stage, he kept turning up and working. He fought as fiercely off-screen as on. Relevance, respect, and purpose were at stake. He rarely showed it, but those battles left scars. As his profession progressed, his scars deepened. A time of perseverance and quiet grief. Despite everything, Richard Jaeckel persisted. Hollywood was already forgetting. Actor Richard Jaeckel never slowed down. Jaeckel stayed working when others took extensive pauses or quit. He worked on sets every few months from the 1940s to the 1990s. His film and TV credits climbed every year to above 150. For most actors, half that number is ideal. For Jaeckel, it was his chosen life. He adjusted as the film industry changed. His 1980s and 1990s TV roles included Baywatch, Starman, and Spencer for Hire. He was rarely the lead, but he was often the best part of an episode. Though they didn't know his name, viewers trusted his visage. Richard Jaeckel's arrival signaled realism, but underneath the unrelenting work ethic was a guy with little options. The phone rang less as Hollywood chased younger, trendier talent. His roles were background figures, quick cameo appearances, or hardened guys with few lines. Oscar-worthy roles stopped appearing. He approached each section with the same enthusiasm and attention as usual. In the early 1990s, something changed. Sharpness in his eyes faded. He lost weight, missed calls, and forgot lines. It was subtle at first, but others worried. The cruelest twist came when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 1994. He couldn't work. For a man whose identity was bound to his trade, leaving acting seemed like a creeping collapse. There were no goodbye tours, magazine covers, or tearful interviews. His industry exit was as subtle as his entry. One day, he appeared on screen. Next, he left. The real struggle began then. If Hollywood had ignored him in his prime, what occurred afterward would be worse. By the mid-1990s, Richard Jaeckel's body was failing, but his soul was unbroken. After a lifetime of long shoot days, tiring schedules, and demanding performances, his final fight would be the most agonizing and personal. In 1996, Jaeckel was diagnosed with terminal cancer. His age was 70. His longtime vigor and power were swiftly sapped by the sickness. After nearly 50 years, his acting career ended abruptly. Suddenly, the industry he had spent his entire in seemed to forget him. Real shock came when financial truth was revealed. A long career and hundreds of credits didn't make Richard Jaeckel rich. His already emotionally exhausted family was suddenly burdened by his rising medical expenditures. The actor who worked with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood was moving into a film and TV fund for veterans. Major studios did not announce red carpet fundraisers or remarks. The hush that followed him as his roles dwindled and his name faded. It was a painful reminder that Hollywood does not honor loyalty, and working-class actors, no matter how prolific, are rarely recognized. Not all of Jaeckel's story was grim. Many fans and former co-workers were shocked to learn what was happening. A grassroots support wave arose. Donations trickled in. Not millions, but enough to matter. Actors from decades earlier discreetly helped. Friends contacted. His Western and war epic fans wrote letters of support. Though hardly the Hollywood ending he deserved, it was true. Reminder that when industry turned away, people did not. Jaeckel was humble throughout. He never publicly criticized the system that failed him. His anger was hidden. He focused on his remaining time, those who supported him, and his previous efforts. However, this final chapter brought unsettling questions. How could a man who given so much to Hollywood get so little? Heartbreakingly, the quietest moment was still to come. Richard Jaeckel died in a small room in the Motion Picture and Television Fund residence in Woodland Hills, California, away from the scenes. Red carpets and sound stages defined his life. He disappeared from an industry that previously relied on his face to communicate its most captivating stories. No in memoriam or farewell documentaries were scheduled for prime time. His disappearance was almost too subtle for many. Richard Jaeckel, 70, died on June 14, 1997. The cause was cancer. He battled bravely and without complaint. The entertainment industry scarcely noticed his demise. A few trade publications noticed it. A few TV retrospectives mentioned it. Though ready to praise bigger stars, the media had little to say. An actor with over 150 parts, many of them iconic, the silence was deafening. But those who knew him well remember a different goodbye. Barry and Richard Jr. said their father never got bitter. He remained calm and grounded as usual despite his illness. He had no death phobia, he agreed. Though his industry forgot him, his family did not. Fans who discovered his work through late-night repeats and old film channels did not either. Not merely his death was quiet. It was the decades before. No scandals, Hollywood meltdowns, or attention-grabbing interviews. Just consistent, diligent work. The stuff that keeps film going. Rarely celebrated, but always important. He worked with actors who went on to win many accolades, score multi-million-dollar agreements, and become legends. Jaeckel perished without a mansion, riches, or due credit. Always reliable, he was the unsung hero of several shows. Ultimately, his quiet dignity characterized him more than any headline. He died in obscurity, which was harder to accept than humiliation or controversy. That obscurity felt terrible to a man who had dedicated his life to his art. But the narrative continues. We're still grappling with his life and Hollywood's lost heroes. The stars, headline makers, box office titans, and those with names on trophies and monuments are generally remembered when people think of the golden years of American cinema. However, Hollywood would not have survived without Richards. Richard Jaeckel made the poster important, despite never being on it. He gave action scenes weight, war films empathy, and hollow stories authenticity. His role was more than background. He was the spectacle's spirit. He was left behind despite that. Not because he failed, but because he never sought stardom like others. He avoided Hollywood politics. He never hired publicists to distort stories or manufacture headlines for personal drama. He let his work speak for itself. Unfortunately, in an industry that forgets quiet performers, his dignity became a double-edged sword. His story raises tough questions. Why are some actors immortalized? Some disappear into footnotes. Richard Jaeckel spent 50 years on screen. He performed Oscar-nominated roles. He flanked idols. He was respected by peers, directors, and viewers. However, most tributes omitted his name. His greatest films were not re-released or honored. A calm, sluggish memory fade. For those who saw him work, Richard Jaeckel was unforgettable for his passion in his eyes, honesty in his performances, and strength in every scene. More importantly, he showed that Hollywood excellence is not always about headlines or ticket sales. Sometimes consistency, devotion, and honesty matter. Jaeckel died poor and unfamous, but he left something more lasting. Despite being overlooked, his significance lives on in American film history. If you're surfing through channels and see him, maybe in uniform, maybe on horseback, maybe looking down danger with that quiet intensity, pause, because that man, whose name you may not know, was one of the best. Every frame counted for Richard Jaeckel, who only required a camera.